Let's see, a few new people arrived during the meditation. Hello and welcome. Hi, Susan. Hi, Hillary. Not sure who that is in online courses, but as the people of lifelong learning, online courses are always welcome. So as we begin, we're going to start with a little bit of a check-in to see how your practice went last week. So I'd love to know, how did patients show up for you or not show up in the last week? And did any of you try the mantra about not withholding goodness? I shared in my blog, my email newsletter this week, that over the weekend I was on a Zoom call and I got really annoyed with someone. And I just, was getting there, sort of getting more fidgety and more annoyed. And then I remembered this teaching about not withholding goodness from other people. And I said, I don't need to withhold my goodness, my goodwill from this other person. Whatever they have, they've got their thing going. That's not my thing. And it really helped me kind of calm down and recenter. So I later in the week had a situation where I did kind of get annoyed and frustrated with someone. So these things are not foolproof and they don't always work. But that's sort of what my journey with patience has been like. And how's it shown up for you?
I haven't been very good. Been very impatient all week. I'm building a studio for myself, and it is taking forever for things to get done. And I keep telling myself it's going to be okay. Just breathe. There's other things you can do. It will get done, but it's been difficult not to get depressed about it. And I'm working on that. I'm trying to be good to myself and to those people that have to do work on it. So that's how it's coming into my life this week.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I listen with an open heart. Being good to yourself is a great place to start. Would anyone else like to share? Yeah, Krina.
So I had an opportunity to really use this. A couple days ago, I was called by a gentleman at our temple, and he said, I have a whole bunch of stuff coming in to my store. He's a jeweler. And he said, I need help sorting through everything and getting it ready. And I called temple, and the rabbi gave me your name. I'm like, okay, I'd be glad to help. And like, when do you need me? He says, well, today, if at all possible. So I'm like, well, I have some private music students, but when they're finished, I can certainly come over and help you. So I rearranged my day. I also had a performance that night to do, playing piano. So I wore my stuff for my performance to a store because I thought, well, this is just inventory or something, and drove to the next town. It was about a half-hour drive. I walk in and he's not even there, but his brother's there. And I say, hi, I'm Krina, and Jim called me, and he's like, oh yeah, didn't he call you back? We don't need you anymore. We had like a whole bunch of opportunity to, nobody came, so we all got it done. Oh, okay. And he's like, oh, but you had the trouble of coming here. I could pay you. And now I'm like, I'm not gonna get paid for driving across town. Hello. And he says, or you could do cleaning for us. Now, mind you, I'm dressed in performance wear. So I'm like, well, I am so glad that you were able to find the time to get the stuff done that you needed to have done, because Jim was sounding like you were way behind this morning. That's totally awesome. I'll pass on the cleaning and you have a nice day. But I'm driving away and I'm like, okay, if this is not a time to practice that Musar thing Greg was talking about, I don't know when it would be. So I thought, I've got now 2 hours that I didn't have. What is something I really needed done this week? I don't really have time to drive home and then drive. And I'm like, you know what? I need a pedicure. So I went and got a pedicure.
Well, all right. That sounds like a good use of your time. And thank you so much for sharing your experience of mindfulness and trying to show up when an unexpected challenge arises. Thank you. Anyone else care to share any of their experiences? Yeah, Nancy.
As I think I said last week, patience is just not my thing. I'm very impatient. I'm really trying. And my question kind of is like, how long do you have to be patient for? So Monday, I finally thought this is going to be my last chance to try to get this installer for the AC. And I called the kind of middleman, and the guy called me right back and went over to my son's condo. And now I've been waiting. He said he would call me back. He would look at the job and get back to me with how much it would cost. So now I'm in the circle again of being patient. Like, how long do I need to be patient for this guy? And I have someone else kind of lined up, but he was going to be busy for 2 weeks. So I think that patience, I'll have to wait another week. But then it's like the air conditioner is sitting there in their, condo and not getting anywhere with people's schedules, which I understand people are busy. But come on, I think there's a give and take when it comes to being courteous, maybe, or I can't think of the word right now, but on their side, like, just get back and let me know if you can do it or not so I could get moving on. And then of course I put in a text to my hairdresser because I want my hair cut, and it's like, come on, it's been 2 days. So it's like, I know they have a life, but I'm one of those that gets back to people immediately. I want everybody to be like me, right? And I know it's not the case. So it's, when we practice patience, how long do we really have to wait and then move on to get somebody else to help us? And Karina, wow, what a thing to go through. I would have been fit to be tied, but you handled it beautifully.
Well, thank you, Nancy. And that is kind of the question we all need to ask ourselves. How long should I be patient? And what is the right amount of time? And it also reminded me of, I shared a little anecdote at the beginning of the chapter in my book on patience. And I can't remember exactly what it said, but I do remember the last line, which said, I can't wait to be done with patience. So, we work on these soul traits for 2 weeks and we try to focus on it. And, it's nice to have that boundary, because if it's something which is really challenging for us, it's maybe easier to kind of engage with it for 2 weeks and see if we can get a little bit of growth in, and then we go on and we engage on something else. So it's, that's the other answer, is you need to be patient for 2 weeks. So yes, Wendy.
Hi. Well, I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum, on the too much patience, but this goodness came in to play a different way for me. I was in line at the UPS store to pick up my mail, which is what we do every day. And there's always a line, and some people just go in and out. I never really much noticed it before, but I had to be someplace. And it was important for the other person that I be there. Because I take care of my granddaughter, and her mother goes to do surgery. So if I'm late, then she's late, the surgery's late, the surgery schedule's late. Someone might not get surgery that needs it. So it's actually kind of like broad that way. So I'm standing there and I watch this guy pass 4 of us up and go into the store, and I'm like, oh yeah, he probably has a key to get his mail. No big deal. And he does have a key to get his mail. He sort of had this, I don't know, haughtiness or something. I don't know. Was I judging? I don't know. And he got his mail out, and he had a little slip to say that he has a package, so that he crowded in front of everybody. It took a while to get the package. I wasn't getting impatient. I really wasn't. I had left myself plenty of time, but in the meantime, I'm thinking, am I being taught a lesson here? Because should I be more aware? Because there are other people that are standing in line that might have the same kind of thing in their lives that I have, that they need to get to. And then he's kind of privileging himself over and above everybody else. And maybe for me to just say nothing is not actually giving the goodness that I have. Maybe I should have said something to him, but I did not. But I did tell the people at the front desk that maybe you want to put a little note in everybody's boxes or something and say everyone needs to stay in line. I don't know. But it just dawned on me that sometimes I might have a lot more patience and not actually act, that if my action might have saved somebody else. That's all I'm saying. Is
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. I get the idea, and thank you for sharing that, because that's also part of it. Patience is, do I act or do I not act? That's very much a part of the picture, and that kind of asking ourselves those questions. And am I in the habit of handling a certain situation in a certain way? And maybe that's telling me something, and maybe not. Not to say that you should or shouldn't have acted in that way, but those are good reflections. Well, I think I heard a lot of interesting stories today, which I think are going to relate to a lot of what we have to cover today, because we're going to be looking at the connection between patience and anger. So may I have a volunteer to read out loud this first paragraph, please? I can't see you all, so you can just unmute yourself.
I could do it.
Okay.
I'm Annie. Sorry, for some reason on this Zoom, I can't change my name. The rename is not available. So anyway, I'm sorry, my name is Annie. The essence of savlanut, patience, is the ability to stay connected and keep goodness flowing to those who defy your will. I learned from this experience that when I remember my connection with others, it can prevent me from losing it. When I do blow up in anger at someone, often it's because I have forgotten my connection. The Torah hints at this idea when in the above dialogue between God and Moses, God says, leave me alone that my anger may blaze forth. Raging anger is made possible by disconnection. I've seen this play out more times than I'd like to admit with my children and also with my partner. When we grow in savlanut, we grow in our ability to respond firmly yet calmly to wrongdoing and bring more love to all situations. And that's by Rabbi David Jaffe.
Thank you, Annie. And I was able to change your name. So
oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so for the whole group, Rabbi Jaffe makes a number of points here. What stands out for you? What is it that he's relating anger to? Janos, I see you nodding.
It relates to not relating to the other person as a person, I think.
Mm.
Right, yeah. Well, actually, for me, the key word is here that reminded me in my life is for me that lack of connection or a poor connection. I'm investing more and the connection is not coming back in that way. Just that frustration turned into anger unless I kind of channel it the right way. And if you let the anger go, it can go into rage. That for me, rage is the problem, not the anger itself. Anger is just energy.
Right. So thank you. So I heard you and Hillary both sort of talk about, Hillary talked about not treating someone as a person, and you related that to a lack of connection. And when we become disconnected from someone, it's very easy to forget that they're a person, that they're a human being, that they also have a divine spark. So how do people relate to that? How is that helpful? Is that sort of a helpful perspective, that sort of this anger kind of is related to disconnection?
You know, I don't know if this is relevant, but you know, like today's my birthday, by the way, and actually it's
Happy birthday.
yeah, but a better birthday coming in few days, because that will be my first anniversary surviving my heart attack.
Mm.
So I think that we can lose connection with ourselves, and lose connection with what's important, what are our core values. And when you do that, then you kind of lose the ability to take care of yourself. And that, but when you take care of yourself, like when Nancy talked about being impatient, well, you know, but that's the same thing, that you need to have connection with yourself, because that impatience is part of you. So you cannot just look at the side, but it's helpful to look from a side for better perspective. You can externalize it, but that's becoming the right real quality and the work when you can assign yourself enough energy and effort. A patience would be effort. You need to put in effort to get something back.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And being able to have the energy to do that. And what you said earlier was, you know, and I think this was also in the reading, that difference between the anger and the rage. I mean, anger is, you know, I suspect, you know, Karina was angry when she showed up and the guy's like, oh, did they forget to call you back? But what I didn't hear in the telling of the story was rage. You know, there was no yelling, there was no, you know, burning of the relationship, and the other person clearly had not acted, you know, ideally, but, you know, finding a way to prevent that anger from going to rage. And it also, you know, in the telling of the story, it sounded like there was a connection that was maintained. Oh, so glad you were able to get your stuff taken care of, you know. So any other thoughts about this, or should we look at our next reading? Without waiting for the answer, I'm going to take us to the next reading. Okay, so another volunteer to read the second, or the top bullet here.
They become angry when anything happens that is not the way they want to be. They fill with such anger until they are not connected to their mind anymore. A person in such a state is capable of destroying the entire world if they had the ability, because their mind is not in control at all. The Path of Suggest, Chapter 11, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto.
Thank you, Joanne. One of the greatest Musar books ever written, 17th century Amsterdam. So Luzzatto, what are some of the points that he's making here? Why, to begin with, why is he saying that some people become angry?
When things are not as they expected them to be.
Right. We're surprised, or we don't get our way, and we get angry. What other soul trait is that related to? When we don't get our way.
Could it be humility?
Yeah, it's humility. It's about like, what's our space, and I have my whole thing planned out, and you know, it didn't happen that way. So the world is not conforming to the way we want it to be, and so, you know, that leads to anger.
I also thought of equanimity as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, becoming angry, not getting our way is also losing our equanimity, our inability to just accept what is, sort of with grace. Okay, so there's another part here. So the first part is, so don't get your way, get angry, and then what happens? What's Luzada's next point?
They're disconnected from their mind.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Watch out.
What's that?
Watch out.
Yeah, it's a watch out. So let's say more. What does it mean to be disconnected from your mind?
You're not reasonable. You've lost touch with reason.
Not reasonable. Lost touch with reasonable. We lose our stuff. You know, we really lose it. Yeah.
Really lose it.
Yeah.
Like Janos was saying just a little bit ago, he said you lose connection with your core values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lose connection with our core values. What else? I saw a hand over here. Yeah, is it Linda?
I'm reminded of when, as a teenager, when you are dating and your boyfriend or girlfriend suddenly dumps you, and the anger and disappointment that you feel is usually very, very irrational. And you just, you know, you go off just go nuts. And I'm sure part of it's hormones, but there's no way to you just lose touch with reality. You're so angry, so hurt, so disjointed that you can't think straight.
Right. And that's literally true. We literally can't think straight. And he goes on to say that a person in this state could destroy the whole world. You know, I'm going scorched earth. You know, I am just so mad. And I'd like to say this was all from hormones but unfortunately, I know I sometimes get in that. I don't know if anyone gets angry the way a teenager does, but boy, there are times when I feel like I'm coming closer than I would like, when that anger really blazes forth and, you know, gets into rage. And then, you know, what's this connection between anger and patience, by the way? Like, why have we started talking about patience, now we're talking about anger. What's the connection? Why did they group them in the same unit?
There are times when anger's okay, but too much patience, just like too much anger, doesn't work sometimes. I had a situation with a family member where the person is used to not taking care of certain things, and I had to be a little bit angry without shouting, repeatedly saying, you're going to do X, you're going to do X, you're going to do X. And the person did it because I wasn't screaming, but I was being really firm.
Yeah.
So it's not always good to be patient if someone's just not doing what's expected. And if you can, you know, not get to a full blown anger, but just get to firm, you know, push, you can be much more effective in certain situations. Whereas screaming, you know, would not have done it. The person would have ignored me.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Hillary. That's a great example. And there are almost two different ways of handling the same situation, and a reminder to all of us that one of the definitions of patience is bearing an uncomfortable situation. You know, it's like, okay, I am, you know, certainly speaking for myself, when I feel that frustration, I'm going to hold on to that frustration. I'm not going to express it as anger, and I'm going to try to, you know, as Hillary was describing, I'm going to get my point across. You know, I don't have to like roll over. I can be firm for what's needed, but it means I'm going to have to bear, some discomfort maybe for that teenage part of me that really wants to just kind of cut loose on this person. But do I want to cut loose, or do I want to get the task done? That's the choice. That's the choice sometimes.
Well, one more observation, if I have just a half.
Of course.
Yeah. So if you look back, where we getting the skills, and we all grow up in families, and there is a mother and a father, and they have different type of hearts. Mom would be a patient one, the understanding, the soothing, the understanding, loving, and all of that. But there is a father. If you flip the coin, the father need to be there to bring in the reality of life and say, you know what, son, stop. You can no. The father is the one who needs to say no. And if you don't have a father, like today we have lots of families, children grow up without fathers. And man, there is a loss of reality. When the reality comes in from life, they are surprised and suddenly turn into anger. But it is a father's job to be able to say to the kids, no, that's not okay. And we are missing that.
Well, yeah, I would say that definitely describes sort of the traditional parenting roles, where the father has one role and the mother has another role. And certainly it's really tough when there's just one parent, for a number of reasons. I mean, I think those roles can be filled by, sometimes it's, the mother might be one way, or maybe there's two mothers or two fathers. So there's, families can look a lot of ways, but I think your point is spot on. Having, that combination of, permissiveness, limit setting, knowing how to deal with anger, knowing how to deal with patience. And, it helps to have more than, multiple influences, multiple teachers as we're growing up, for sure. Okay. Now we're going to have another look at anger here, this time from Maimonides. So may I have another volunteer to read, please?
I can read. The way of the upright is to adopt the intermediate characteristic of each and every temperament that people have. However, there are some intermediate temperaments which one is forbidden to have, but one should adopt one of the extremities of such temperaments. It is the same with anger, which is an extremely bad temperament, and from which it is fitting for one to distance oneself as far as its opposite extreme. One should teach oneself not to get angry, even over something about which it would be normal to get angry. Mishnah Torah, I can't see it, the Guide to Right Living.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so he's a lot of like this teaching and Musar practice about finding the middle way, finding the balanced way. That goes back to Maimonides in the 12th century. So he is the one, and he was very influenced by Aristotle, actually. So just in case, for people who say you should never, have influences from outside of Judaism, Judaism has been influenced by other cultures since the beginning of time. So if Maimonides can be influenced by Aristotle, I think it's okay for me to be influenced by Eckhart Tolle. So just my soapbox there for a moment. But there's this idea that we really want to kind of find the middle way. However, he's giving an exception here. So he's saying when it comes to anger, what is his point? Paul, I see you sitting forward. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm thinking that this goes back to comments earlier about the separation between anger and rage. And I'm wondering if the language in this text is, extremely bad temperament. It sounds like that's sort of on the rage side. Personally, what I've experienced in life is that, the reason why patience and anger is a really interesting pairing is that I can be patient to the point where I can't take it anymore. And then I don't have an intermediate way of being firm and gentle I never learned that as a child from my family. So I just explode, right? And I get to be, rage. So I lose the connection all of a sudden. And unfortunately, this still happens. So I'm learning how to, occasionally I get that balance right where I can be firm, but gentle. So I'm not sure what this is really talking about. Not to ever get angry reminds me of my mother, who was also patient to the point where it's like I thought she'd not be that patient, where I was told, if I was angry, I, go into a closet and yell, or I scream into a pillow, or write things down and throw them away, So that was her way of dealing with anger, which left me with not much. I didn't really know what to do with that, except to internalize it.
Yeah,
so I'm confused by the text.
Yeah, so I think it is, it's pretty extreme point of view. And that is where Maimonides comes down, and he says elsewhere, well, if don't ever get angry, but if you need to like motivate someone with anger, just pretend like you're angry. But I'm just wondering, is it realistic or healthy to say that we can't ever get angry? I grew up in, oh, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
If we never got angry, we wouldn't have Black Lives Movement, we wouldn't have civil rights movements, we wouldn't have women's rights. And we have to get angry in order to enact change, because anger propels us, it gives us a reason to do things, to make right what's wrong.
Right. Right, that's really interesting. So we could think about, okay, I feel some anger arising. Is that because, oh, I'm sorry, Joanne. Let's get your video back on here. I think you should be able to restart your video.
There.
I'm sorry about that. So we can get angry that our video is disabled, and we can rage about it, or we can ask to have the video put back on. But it's like, okay, is this anger like an ego thing? Is it because my ego is being thwarted, or is it because maybe it's a signal that something is wrong? That something needs to change. And then when that's the case, how do we sort of manage that? I grew up in New York State. I grew up in Syracuse, and a lot of people there are from New York City. It's a very direct culture. You say what's on your mind. You get annoyed with somebody, you get annoyed with someone, that's it. And boy, when I moved to California, was it different. And, it was like, I remember, actually, for my book, I spoke it and I had someone transcribe the book. It was this technique to use. And I started reading the transcription, and some of the words were changed. I'm like, oh yeah, we just cleaned it up. We cleaned up the language a little bit. And it's like, this is my writing. I don't need you to like, dumb down my prose, that's.
I'm on Zoom.
So I got mad. And boy, I got this email and people were crying, and how could you treat people this way? And so, boy, in New York, it wouldn't have even been an issue. So it is, there's sort of a cultural thing, but I do think that there's a lot of messages that we get, and some of this is gendered and some of it isn't, that it's not okay to be angry, that we should not get angry. And I had a teaching with a bunch of college students, and this one guy said, yeah, and I have to learn that like I can still be a chill person and get annoyed and hold people accountable for what they did, because it's like your roommate leaves something out, and if you bring it up, it's like suddenly you're not being a chill person, so that's kind of the college version. So I think we get these messages early on. So now I'm going to share something from Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, the Velveteen Rabbi, who we've seen her writings before. And she's talking about something called spiritual bypass. So may I have a volunteer to read this? Karina, might I call on you to read this first, please?
Certainly. The danger of spiritual bypass. When someone doesn't want to feel angry or isn't comfortable with conflict, so they over focus on sweetness and light while sweeping their anger under the rug, or encouraging others to sweep anger under the rug. That's spiritual bypassing. Authentic spiritual life calls us to feel what we feel, even when what we feel is uncomfortable or painful.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat that last line. Authentic spiritual life calls us to feel what we feel, even when what we feel is uncomfortable or painful.
I love this, Greg, because you know what? In psychology, we know that there is a biology of our body. We have automatic nervous system. It gets activated in a half a second. Your automatic nervous system jumps in and you want to fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. And you have no choice over this. So now you can train yourself to keep engaging your parasympathetic, cool yourself down, but automatically, naturally, we get angry, period. You know, yeah, it's a biology. Amygdala is very sensitive and reacts fast. So I love this part a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Other people have experience with spiritual bypass. Maybe it's something you've done or you've seen other people can do it. Wendy, I couldn't tell if you were going to say something, or if you're just shifting around.
No, not shifting, just I'm standing actually. That's why you see me shifting.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just going to say, I think I do that somewhat, yes. I do. Or more than sweep things under the rug, I call it the think system, so that when I feel like something's bothering me that way, then I think it through. And I go through a long time to process things. And then I won't necessarily sweep it under the rug. I'll just handle it a way that I think is more pleasant than getting angry. I think that this last statement on its face seems to be the opposite of what Maimonides is saying, but actually I don't really believe it is. I think Maimonides, like it was Paul maybe, was saying that the language, he seemed to be speaking of anger as though it's already bubbled up over the surface. It's not something that you're bothered by. It's more the rage that you've gone into already, or something like that, rather than just, because I always thought anger is kind of a feeling. And what you do with that is what matters the most.
I think that's the thing. I think she's saying don't deny the feeling. She didn't say shriek. She doesn't say act on it in the full intensity that you're feeling. She doesn't say that. She just says don't deny the feeling. There is a difference, I think.
Yeah. And it's, she's talking about like a spiritual bypass. And I do think that there's a danger of interpreting Maimonides in a way, as you say, that sort of the activist, like, don't ever get angry. And I really like this idea that maybe if he's talking about rage, it's like, yeah, don't let yourself get into a rage, and train yourself not to get into a rage. But if you really think you can never get angry, I mean, I remember once I was at a Torah study, and I don't like to tell, it's really better when I tell stories about, myself, my own experience, but this was one I'll tell about someone else, where we're talking about some kind of issue, and this person said, well, we just need love. We just need to love each other more. And it's like, okay, all right. And then I said something like, yeah, and it's really hard when we feel these angry feelings come up. And she cut me off and she said, love is what we need. And I was like, oh, okay then. So that sort of was like, you're willing to I felt like she's willing to beat me up, in the name of love, and that's because, I was willing to entertain the fact that we might have difficult feelings coming up. So, that to me is what I thought of when I thought of the spiritual bypass, as opposed to be like, yeah, we got to sit with these difficult feelings sometimes. And that's which brings us back to patience. It's having that endurance to be able to be here, be present, be now with, whatever difficult feelings that we're feeling, and then figuring out what, if anything, is the right way to deal with them, whether it's a conversation or whether it's getting a pedicure. There's lots of there's lots of right answers. Okay, well, now what we're going to do is we're going to get ready for our breakouts. And our topic for today is, so this is something that Rabbi Jaffe wrote. It says, the only time Moses really despaired is he asked the divine for help. And God instructs, he says, the burden's too heavy. And God tells him to choose 70 elders to become assistant prophets and share the load of the leadership. So this is another key teaching about Savlanut. When we feel at the end of our ability to bear something, it may be time for us to request help from others. And so with your partner, what I'd like you to talk about is maybe what are some of the things that hold you back from asking for help? Like it's all great in theory to never get angry or to manage our anger or to ask for help. But the question is, what holds us back from doing that? So that's going to be our hang on a second, something weird just happened. Ooh, okay, sorry, it's making me like do something.
May I ask a question while we're waiting?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just finished reading Obama's book, A Promised Land, and I was brought back to that wonderful time that he was at Buchenwald with Elie Wiesel. And there wasn't time in this moment because it just came back into my memory, which most of my memory hormones are usually MIA. It seems that I reflect Elie saying something in that speech about righteous anger. And so maybe in our breakout groups or some other time, I remember hearing that at the time. And like maybe some of you, anytime I heard him, it, brought me to tears. And, hearing that and then looking at that time for some other places that he talked about that, I felt like it gave me some permission to be with my righteous anger, which is cosmic now, as well as the individual. And then today it brought me back to what Janos was saying. I feel that way, although I think my perspective is a little bit different. My father died when I was very young. And as I struggled with my anger through my teenage years and on, it was much later, probably in my 30s, that I realized, wow, I had not been fathered. And there's something about having that fathering energy and that mothering energy. And my mom was actually the one who was more dynamic like that and more out loud. My father was more magnetic. So I eventually translated that for me into energies, so that fathering energy is like my dynamic energy and that mothering is my magnetic. And one of my challenges is how do I bring those together? Because to me, patience is very much a magnetic function and anger is a dynamic function, and they both have a place to dance together. And I struggle with the choreography. And thank you for letting me share that.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Susan. I listen with an open heart, and that's, beautifully said. Learning to dance with these different energies, that's part of the task for sure. Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms. So you should see a little button on your screen which says join breakout room. Janet, are you with us? Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So how are your discussions? Love to hear what insights you may have come up with about some of the things that might hold you back, or anything else you talked about.
The last thing we talked about was how is anger related to the difficulty in asking for help. And we didn't get a chance to really go into it, but some people get angry if we ask them for help, but then are we angry at ourselves if we can't figure it out ourselves? Do we get, you know, is that the anger that you're referring to? So that's the question.
Great question. Yeah, I know. I can't speak for everyone, but I know for sure that I sometimes get angry with myself if I feel like I can't do it myself, or if I don't handle something well. It's like, oh, I got irritated and sent a little bit of a sharp email, and oh, Greg, what's the matter with you, man? And then that can sort of lead to a whole unhealthy situation. Joanne, did I see your hand? You need to unmute.
We were talking about, like wanting to be independent, but sometimes you really need help, or you can't do everything all by yourself. And we need to be, maybe as a whole, as a universe, maybe more interdependent and not independent so much. But individual independence, I guess, is a very American thing. And actually, as you grow older, some people are very resistant. But with me, it's not pride. When I do ask, then I'm happy I did that.
Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, shout out for interdependence. Annie.
I was saying for me, it's a fear of not wanting to appear needy or weak.
Yeah, fear of feeling needy or weak. Yeah, that's, again, there's a lot of, I suspect there's cultural messages, sometimes it's like, oh, if you can't do this on your own. Well, sometimes no. And maybe I don't need a good reason why I can't do this on my own. I sometimes find myself like rehearsing, well, these are all the reasons why I need help. And, do I need a reason? Maybe not. Yeah. Thank you. Other barriers or other things that kind of came up.
So for me, I know there are times when I have to be very careful about asking for help, because that means I need to allow the person I've asked for help to be themselves and not be the thing that I want them to be. And I've certainly been in positions before where I got angry at somebody because I asked for the help and then they didn't do what I wanted them to do. And so there's if I invite them in by asking them for help, that's a new relationship. And I can't think of them as simply hired help if I've asked them as a friend or a family member or something like that.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And I think that brings us back to kind of this sort of theme we've seen in these materials, and this is really about how do we sort of maintain relationship with each other? How can someone do something which we're not happy with and stay in relationship with them? So let's, I know we're about a minute over time, so let's just take a quick closing meditation. So please close your eyes. Once again, taking a nice leisurely breath through the nose and a leisurely exhale. And whether this was your first time here or your 40th time here, Let's take a moment of gratitude for this space where we can maybe develop a little bit of interdependence. We started coming together because none of us wanted to face this time alone. And having this ability and opportunity to share this journey with others has been a privilege for me and a joy. And take one more deep breath and tilt your head back and smile. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.